Hi everyone, hi subscribers, it's Sloan Rhodes here with your Spiritual Self-Mastery class, Ego and Heart, for the week of January 27th, 2019. Today I'm going to be drawing two cards, one from the Sacred Rebels deck by Alana Fairchild. And as I do every week, I look at one card from the perspective of the ego and one card from the perspective of the more heart-centered energies. And I'll be drawing another card so we can look at what we can expect regardless. Let's go ahead and get started. I hope everyone had a lovely week. Just to remind everyone that all of my YouTube videos are available on the audio podcast, so you can listen to them as well as watch them here on the YouTube channel. And there are links below. And if you haven't checked out my website, I do have a resources page with lots of links to different kinds of information that you might find helpful. So you might want to check that out. And of course, you can always schedule an appointment there as well. Week of January 27th, 2019. Good job, energies. Okay, I'll take it. Dream a beautiful dream. What a gorgeous card. Well, as I look at this card, I'm really drawn to Mother Gaia, the planet Earth, and this incredible grid system all around it. And there is really a focus on planetary consciousness, global awareness more than ever, especially with technology. It's really connected all of us in ways that we couldn't and wouldn't have thought possible maybe 20, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago in many ways. And we have number 19. Such a beautiful card. All right, so one of the ways that the ego may try to distract us in this beautiful energy, you know, this fullness energy. We have number 19, which for me, 1 + 9 = 10. We have this idea of approaching completion, the fullness, before we level up to a new understanding, right? A new consciousness. We are really reaching our maximum understanding of where we are now and about to leap into brand new consciousness. Now, the ego may try to distract us with this, with our own problems, right? I don't care about the planet. I have to pay my bills tomorrow. I don't care about what everyone else is doing. I've got my own little, reality here. And of course, it's important that we take care of ourselves and take care of our own lives. But remember that the macro and the micro are always mirroring one another. So as there is this approach towards fullness on the macro, right? The planet that we live upon, there's an approach towards fullness within ourselves as well. Like we are, the difficulties that we have been through are pushing us into flowering, right? A flowering of consciousness, if you will, on the macro level as well as the micro. So even though, of course, you have your own individual things to take care of, and the ego will kind of want to make you kind of focus in on that so that it keeps you in a pattern that it's familiar with, which keeps you away from the grander awakening of your soul, let's say. Be aware that when you want to hyper-focus on just your problems, take a breath. Recognize that you are part of a larger whole, that you are never doing it alone. You are always supported by the universal oneness. And do your best to take a minute. When you got caught up in I got to take care of this one thing, I got this one bill, and if I don't pay that, then I'm in big trouble, right? And I don't care about the planet. I'm just going to throw out this piece of paper, throw this thing out of my car window because I don't have time to recycle it, or whatever it may be. You can certainly do that, but recognize where you are doing it consciously, as opposed to just out of a pattern that is familiar, that is something that you've been doing for eons, or that it's fear-based, that you don't have enough time. There's not enough time to take care of myself or the planet or any of this. The ego will always kind of keep you in this patterning that is a very familiar pattern, not just for you on a personal level, but for humankind. Right? And we are approaching new consciousness. New consciousness is arising, let's say, and shifts are occurring. And a big shift is on the very near horizon here, internally as well as externally. And the more that you can align with the more heart-centered energies of awakening, love, allowance for yourself to be stressed and worried about your own personal experience, as well as recognizing where you fit into the larger fabric of humanity, this allows for more give. Remember, if you think of yourself as one thread in the fabric of humanity, it's not a steel bar, and even steel bars, as we know from rebar, can move in earthquakes and things. But there is a give. It's fluid. When you shake out a fabric, all the threads are moving together. Maybe one's up and one's down as you look at it like a undulation, in terms of like shaking out a sheet or whatever. But we're all connected, and this is you, and the ego will try to keep you thinking that you are the only thread that matters, or that bill is the only bill that matters, or this relationship. There's a much grander plan at work here, a much grander experience occurring that you can tap into more and more with your breath. The ego's like, focus on this, that big spotlight, as I've mentioned. And you can say, okay, I will focus on that. But when you can kind of get out of it, take a breath, connect to a more fluid energy, a more flexible kind of feel. You can even move your body around, stand up, shake out your legs, your arms, This reminds the mind that there is more to you than this one thing, this one small speck that the ego wants you to focus on. If you look at this card, it's so beautiful. And you can even see, like, say that's you right there, Look at all the things that you are connected to, maybe not consciously, but in the superconscious, you certainly are aware of it. And you can tap into this more and more through your breath, connecting to the ability for fabric to breathe and move. If you look at the interconnectedness of this and using the metaphor of fabric, if that works for you, or even light, light connects to light. This incredible grid energy. And it expands beyond our planet, of course, out into our solar system, into our universe, and then, or into our galaxy, and then into other universes. It's like. So the heart-centered energies are about the awareness, the openness here. Build a beautiful dream. Allow yourself to dream. One of the ways that we can connect to the present moment is to quiet our mind, to take a breath. Breath is a really beautiful and very fast way to connect to something beyond yourself, knowing that, we're all living and breathing, external, internal, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation. You're caught up and you think, I gotta do this, and you say, okay, wait a minute. You get up, you move a little bit, you take a breath. I'm connected to all that is. I'm never doing it alone. I'm always supported. And then you take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. But you've got to allow some movement in there, right? And the heart's all about that, connecting more and more to this incredible planetary consciousness, this incredible grid that is lighting up more and more brilliantly. It's really, really lovely to see. Let's get one more card. But we are approaching, again, this idea of fullness, kind of and I don't like to use fear-mongering, but, sort of a critical mass before we tip into this brand new energy, which is a leveling up. It's a new, lighter, higher consciousness, let's say, if you want to use that language, and we have to use language here to relate to one another in many ways. And it's a beautiful, but you have to allow, so this is what I wanted to say earlier, if you can allow yourself to kind of take a breath and allow yourself to kind of connect more brilliantly, more clearly, more consciously to more than what you have just going on right here. And then you feel the Eckhart Tolle likes to call it the spaciousness, the awareness, the aliveness within. And then you can imagine the possibilities. All things are possible. There are no limitations. All things are possible. And you've seen this on the planet. You've seen miracles, as we call them, arise. People who would never walk, and then they walk. People who should have died, who didn't, People who were born into abject poverty and then rise, to become wealthy, but then incredible philanthropists. There's so many possibilities. So allow yourself to dream in the possibilities beyond what is apparently from the ego's perspective, the only thing that matters. But it does take consciousness. It does take a desire and a courageous leap of faith in many ways, that there's something beyond the immediacy of what feels like it needs to be taken care of. We are never alone. We're all connected. What happens in Calcutta happens here. What happens in Dublin, Ireland occurs wherever you are. What happens in Perth, Australia happens somewhere else. We're all connected. Many times we do feel alone. We feel as though we are alone with our problems, our seeming problems. Certainly things need to be taken care of now and then. We can't always just do what the heart wants to do. And we could, but it's very difficult, obviously. Sometimes the heart does not want to make the bed, but you make it anyway because you feel good after, You feel tidy and neat and prepared. But the more that you can bring your loving consciousness and awareness to everything that you're doing, even the bills. I'm going to pay this bill because that's as an act of self-care. Or I'm going to walk away from this situation for the moment as an act of self-care, as an act of love. And the more that you're loving yourself, the more that you are bringing that conscious awareness to the planet, and that helps someone in a different country, different space, based on this interconnectedness. And as you do that, you're breathing in love, and you can't help but breathe out love. And it has this ripple effect. Now, I've never been to India, but I believe Calcutta is still a city in India. It just came into my awareness, so. If it's not, I apologize. What can we look forward to or expect regardless? Restore and replenish. Beautiful energy. See, this act of self-care, taking care of self, it plants the seeds for everyone to care for self. We all have to take care of one another. We cannot continue to ignore suffering, ignore what's occurring in ourselves first and foremost. The suffering that occurs within ourselves, the self-hatred that we heap upon ourselves with our self-judgments, that somehow we're not perfect or that our problems equate to some kind of lack within ourselves, our seeming problems. That we equate our situation with our sense of worth sometimes. We are all worthy and deserving of love, unconditional love, the abundance that the universe provides in each and every moment. But it's our self-judgments and our worries and our anxieties that the ego likes to keep us focused in on. And the ego is doing so many cartwheels and acrobatic moves to keep us focused in on that when there's so much beauty and love around us all. And during this week in particular, there is this kind of focus on restoring and replenishing, continuing to sow the seeds of self-love, self-acceptance. And that is a suffering that we can't ignore anymore. It's a suffering that we are doing to ourselves. And as you continue to pinch yourself over and over again with your self-judgments and your lack of love for self, let's say. A small pinch doesn't feel like it's going to do much, but many, many pinches over time are very damaging and distracting. So we cannot ignore that suffering. And we tend to think we can't ignore the suffering of others. This is true as well, the macro and the micro. Reflecting one another. But start with self. It becomes much easier and more effective to help others when you are coming from a fullness of love and feeling supported yourself. Not from others necessarily, but from yourself. Your own support of self, your own self-care, your own self-love. This is what allows you to reach out to your neighbor, to your communities, to the masses, let's say, and provide more help, assistance, support, love. We cannot ignore the suffering within selves any longer. It has to shift towards more acceptance, more love, more self-care. And that just creates a strengthening of this beautiful golden grid to which we're all connected. Restore and replenish yourself kindly, lovingly. Allow that seed a safe place to grow from, a soft place. A lot there. It's very, very interesting energy for the week. Dream a beautiful dream. Allow the possibilities to come in. Allow yourself to move a little bit. Be flexible. Breathe. Be kind and gentle with yourself and with others. I hope you find that helpful. I wish everyone a very beautiful, restorative week, and I wish you much love as always.